Welcome to our Friday vlog.
Welcome.
This week we thought we would talk about a common issue that couples mention when they work with us, especially doing the couples intensives that we do, and that is dissatisfaction around sexual intimacy.
Yes, let's talk about that.
You okay, Angus?
I'm squirming a little inside, but I know it's a valuable topic.
Is your Englishness or your Britishness having a hard time with this topic?
Yes, my inner British reserve is having a little bit of difficulty with this idea.
But wouldn't you agree that this is a really important area?
Very important area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll let you lead with it and see how I respond.
And wouldn't you also agree that this is pretty much something that happens across the board for most of the people that we work with?
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. No, for sure.
So it's something that I think probably isn't talked about enough, and it would be good to help people have less suffering in that area of their life.
Well, without further ado, let's talk about it.
Well, what?
No, let's go.
One of the things that has occurred to me recently, I was having a conversation about someone with this, and I recognized that I think it's really natural for desire and libido to shift in terms of when a relationship is new. There's a lot of excitement, and in that newness and in that excitement, it's very easy to get connected with sexual desire and have that be something that's just very present and not something that needs to be worked very hard at. But in long-term relationships, when that newness wears off, it becomes a different experience around that. And I actually read an article that was saying that women actually become bored more quickly than men in relationships. What's going on?
I wondered if you make an announcement in the bedchamber and say, my newness has worn off.
No, it'd be your newness has worn off.
I'm a little bit challenged on the newness front tonight.
So when that happens, and I know that happened in my experience in terms of in terms of
it's uncharted territory. I don't know where it's going to go.
You don't know what I'm going to say.
I don't.
I can see you look at me. Like, what is it? Just in case you didn't know, the newness did wear off in our relationship.
How deep we're going to go.
So,
no pun intended. I guess there's all sorts of opportunity for sexual innuendo in this conversation.
So, first of all, I want to say that is common. It is normal. I don't know that it happens to everybody, but it is definitely something that has been researched and has been found that most people, but women especially, can get more bored easily in terms of sexual attraction in relationships, long-term relationships. And so what I found for myself is that I really thought when that shifted that meant that I didn't have sexual desire anymore, that somehow my libido had gone out the window and I didn't know where it had gone. And it wasn't
that I was sexually boring. Which is probably what I was thinking.
Well, you can talk about your side. Do you want to say anything about that?
No, we'll get to me in a moment, I guess.
Okay.
Once it's all laid out on the table, I know what I'm dealing with then.
So what I did was I took it very personally. I thought that there was something wrong with me because I expected that sexual excitement to be the same throughout our relationship, was up to our 26 years of marriage, and it didn't work that way. But this happened fairly early on, like after about a year, maybe something like that, and that's pretty early on in a relationship to feel like, oh no, what's happening? And so what I realize now is that with that mindset, I started to put even more pressure on myself, and I started to worry. And in the pressure and in the worrying, of course, having more in my mind made it even less appealing and attractive to be able to be connected in that way. And then bringing you into the equation, you started to take that very personally in terms of my lack of desire, and then that led to conflict in our relationship. Would you agree?
Yeah. And then woe betide, that conflict would emerge within the sexual arena because then all bets are off at that point. So I think that I felt like I was walking around on eggshells, and that it was very easy to put a foot wrong. I guess I'll use that part of my anatomy in this equation as an example. But I feel like I just felt that you were really distant at a point where obviously intimacy seems to be very much the order of the day. I felt that you were off with your imaginary friends. I didn't know where you were. Obviously, you know.
Are you talking about when we were trying to have sex?
Yes.
I'd be off with my imaginary friends.
I was just trying to put it in more delicate terms. But yes, you could be off with your imaginary friends. I don't know where you had gone, but you weren't present with me. And obviously, you were worried about your lack of libido, whatever you were worrying about. You weren't present with me at that moment in time. And I think that there was a sort of chain reaction in that respect. So your lack of presence, I probably interpreted as like, oh, I'm sexually boring or something, or I'm doing things wrong. And it's sort of, our sex life kind of collapsed on that basis. We both were caught up with our imaginary friends or wherever we were going with our imagination.
Maybe our worries.
Our worry. I'm just using that, using that term in an affectionate way. But yeah, I was absolutely probably, at times consumed with worry that, I need to do this right or I'm going to lose her. It seems like I maybe have already lost her. Maybe I just need to get her back. How do I get her back? I need to do some good moves to get her back. And no moves seem to be sufficient enough to get you back. And the intimacy kind of like went out the window.
Yeah, and then because of the conflict between us, then it becomes an area of our life that is heated and sensitive, and our feelings are starting to get hurt. And so you can imagine how it just kind of spiraled into barely being able to approach the subject without, ended up being an argument.
Yeah, and I guess the difficulty for me, and I'll talk about from my perspective, is that my libido actually kind of never got compromised in this whole experience. So there was that desire was always there for me, but I actually got to a point where I don't know if I really want sex because it's just such a difficult area. But it's still ultimately in my physiology there was that demand coming forward. But I nevertheless felt like, this is just like, this could go horribly wrong in an absolute instant. And it kind of, it did feel like I was walking around on eggshells, on very thin ice. And it just was not a good recipe for having a successful coitus.
Oh my goodness. You had to throw that word in. Are you trying to show off with your English vocabulary?
No. My scant knowledge of Latin.
So what I see now is that we really created a mountain out of a molehill, something that is normal, that is going to shift and change over a long-term relationship. The way that sexual desire reveals itself can shift, and that doesn't mean, because it's not sort of on my mind all the time the way it might have been at the beginning of a relationship, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And so what I have realized now is that I spent so much time worrying about it, thinking there was something wrong with me, getting irritated with you because I didn't think you were being patient enough or understanding enough, and then like all of that mountain out of the molehill was due to a simple misunderstanding in which all I needed to recognize on my end was that if I wanted to enjoy sexual intercourse, if I wanted to enjoy sexual intimacy, that if I allowed myself to get present and had that intention, then the desire would naturally emerge. And what was getting in the way of the ability to experience the desire was not that it didn't exist, but was that I was so caught up in my worry that there was no way I was going to be able to find it. And that when I was able to get present, when I was able to take things off my mind, when I was able to not worry about performance or where things were going, when I was able to finally relax and enjoy the connection, enjoy the emotional connection as well as the physical connection, then all of a sudden it's like, desire can emerge out of nothing. And so for me, that might sound, very simple to other people or obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. And it's kind of been revolutionary on one level to realize that it's always there, and I just can allow myself to relax into that and see how it emerges.
Yeah, the power of intention. I love it. It works for me. I don't want to mess with it.
Not going to mess with it now.
No, long may it last.
Well, we hope that at least starting the conversation is helpful for you, and we're happy to answer any questions or hear your reflections about this if anything comes up for you when you listen.
And in this current lockdown, there's plenty of opportunity to practice.
Plenty of cuddling time coming up.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.